Hi, everyone. This is Paul Moran from Grand Opportunity USA, or GOUSA, the host and moderator for today's OppScore Debate with or without the candidates for the race of the 7th Congressional District in Indiana. With us is Republican nominee Angela Grabovsky, who's running to unseat current 7-term incumbent Democrat Andre Carson, who has not accepted our debate request after multiple attempts. Angela will instead debate Carson's record, platform, and positions as found in the public record, on his website, and in the media. Information that's also found in his OppScore rating produced by GOUSA. Suzanne Monk is joining us to read out Carson's record as he has refused to join the debate to discuss and defend his record and positions for the voters of Indiana. GOUSA is a nonpartisan 501c4 nonprofit organization, and the OppScore, short for Opportunity Score, is the first, one and only unbiased political credit rating system that simply shows which politicians are working in support of the Constitution and the will of the people, and who's working against us. The app is free to use and was developed to give voters an easy, fast, and better way to assess candidates for office before they cast their vote, based on the issues they care most about. At GOUSA, we are the voice of the forgotten 80%. And as we like to say, it's not left versus right or red versus blue. Really, it's them versus you. Now for the debate rules. I will ask a series of 10 questions of the candidates. Republican candidate Angela will go first, and Suzanne will then speak for Democrat Carson's positions, each having up to 2 minutes to respond to each question. At the conclusion of the responses, I will briefly respond to identify whether the candidate is supporting or opposing the Constitution and the majority will of the voters on the given topic, and then move to the next question. So let's get the games to begin, and I'm happy to introduce Angela, who's going to introduce herself right now. Thank you for running for Congress.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, John, for having me. Very quick introduction. My name is Angela Grabovsky. I immigrated to the United States, to Indianapolis in 1989 from the former Soviet Union. I was born in Odessa, Ukraine. My family came to the States as political and religious refugees trying to escape rising anti-Semitism and basically no opportunities for a Jewish population that lived at that time in Ukraine. We came to Indianapolis with $72 per person, one suitcase, and no English. And Indianapolis was very gracious by accepting us. We really grateful to everybody we met here. And we're grateful to the country that accepted us the way that we were. I always tell people that, when we came, we were stateless because the Soviets took our citizenship away from us because we disagreed with their Marxist ideology and the socialist system. We were homeless, we were penniless, we were jobless, but we were never hopeless. And we had a hope for a brighter future for ourselves and our children. We wanted to live in the United States and become citizens and fully contributing members of this society. So we are very grateful, as I said, but at the same time, we have been living in fear in the last couple of years, seeing what is happening to the United States and how it's changing very rapidly to resemble the country that we came from.
Wow, so that's a big story. I don't think there's anybody else running for Congress that has your background, having lived in the Soviet Union, seeing frightening parallels between was happened there years ago and what's happening now with our authoritarian, tyrannical, overly, what many people think is a tyrannically growing, government here in America. So thank you very much for running. And now I'm going to introduce Andre Carson. And I'm going to pull up his screen right now as I talk about his background. And so Andre Carson is a member of the Democrat Party, is a member of the U.S. House representing Indiana's 7th Congressional District. He assumed office on March 13th, 2008. So this would be his 8th term. His current term ends on January 3rd, 2023. Carson is running for re-election to the U.S. House to represent Indiana's 7th Congressional District. He is on the ballot in the general election on November 8th, in just next Tuesday. He advanced from the Democrat Party on May 3rd, 2022. Carson won re-election in 2018 with 64.9% of the vote. He is the second Muslim ever elected to the U.S. Congress. The previous holder of Indiana's 7th Congressional District seat, Julia Carson, was his grandmother. So I guess it runs in the family. Prior to serving in the U.S. Congress, Carson worked in law enforcement. He also served on the Indianapolis City Council from 2007 to 2008. So that's a bit about Andre's background, and he refuses to debate. So that's the reason why we were bringing up someone else to read for his score. But we believe that everybody that running for public office, especially in the federal level, needs to debate. So we're doing the debate with or without him. Okay, so we're ready for the first question. Okay, great. So, do you believe that everyone has the First Amendment right to religious liberty and free speech, including online speech? That's part number one of the question. Part two of the question is, do you believe that government has the right to use our personal private information for any reasons it deems necessary and has the right to mandate personal health and medical policy?
This question is being asked every time there is a candidate forum which Carson refused to attend. What I can tell you is that the last time we had to read U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights was in 1996 when we got naturalized, when we received our citizenship. And for many years, it didn't feel like we have to reread it. But again, in the last couple of years, I've been reading the Constitution and the Bill of Rights on a regular basis, because what I see is happening, that the First Amendment rights are being taken away from us, especially during the COVID, especially the big tech involvement. I feel like right now we are one word away from being canceled. They disallowed the peaceful assembly during COVID, which they shouldn't have done it. And, it's just the government overreach is getting bigger and bigger. So every time something happens in the country, like the Mar-a-Lago raid, I looked at the Constitution and the Bill of Rights again, and I said, okay, this is the Fourth Amendment. We lived in a country where people disappeared because they didn't have the First Amendment rights. The U.S. is the only country that has it. We were living in a country where we were afraid of knocks on the doors in the middle of the night because we knew that anybody could come and take us away because somebody might have overheard that we disagree with the policies and politics of the tyrannic government. And this is exactly what is happening right now in the United States. Nobody cares. They're going after the supporters of Trump. They're going after the president. They don't care about the privacy rights. And we have to do something about it. We have to defend all of the rights that we have right now, because if we don't, we're going to get back to, again, the country from which I came from.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your answer on that. And it seems like your answer is very clear. You're for the First Amendment, strong on the
absolutely,
and strong on also our personal
on the privacy rights. We shouldn't be afraid living our lives.
Okay, great. So I'm going to show the audience your score. Occasionally, I'm going to show the score to get an idea of how we grade and rate politicians. And simply, it's on the Constitution and the will of the people. So here's your score if you haven't seen it yet. And you got a very nice 4.6 out of 5. And if we go to personal opportunity and click on that, any viewers, we encourage you to go to the website to do this. You'll see where your support is on the First Amendment and personal privacy rights. You get thumbs up for both. And if you click into this, it shows your answer to the response, your response to the survey, and the explanation. Vast majority of Americans support the First Amendment, as well as the vast majority of people want to see more privacy and less intrusion in our personal lives from the government. So you win on both those counts for those reasons. Okay, so great, thank you. And I'm going to then now move to Suzanne, who's going to talk for a moment about the response from Andre, who refuses to debate Angela today.
Well, what I did learn also about Congressman Carson is that he often refuses to vote as well. He spends a lot of time signing on to letters, writing letters, urging a lot of very aggressive and progressive policies. But he does. We had to dig a little bit to find his votes. We've done some of that research, and so let me tell you about his free speech record. The congressman prefers expanding freedom to protect specific identity groups rather than all free speech, including supporting federal anti-hate speech laws and policies. He has written letters urging what did let's see. He has voted to. My glasses are a little dirty here. Please excuse me. He has voted to remove statues from government buildings based on a historical offense. He was a strong supporter of vaccine mandates and COVID regulations and appropriations. He writes a lot of funding, specifically letters to push various funding bills.
Okay, so it sounds to me like he's kind of iffy on the First Amendment. He wants to kind of pick and choose who can have religious and free speech rights, and that's not really in line with the First Amendment covers everybody. It should not be identity based. And then we know that he's also not been a supporter, according to the data we have, of he's been a mixed record. He actually opposed the Patriot Act, which is interesting, but he was all for the shutdowns and the extreme COVID mandates. So for those reasons, he gets a mixed score on that.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, let's thank you, Suzanne. And we're going to then move to the next question, number 2. What is your specific position on abortion rights, Angela? Specifically, are you strongly pro-life, strongly pro-choice, or do you believe that the mother has the right to choose early in the pregnancy, but you oppose abortion after the first trimester, except in rare and limited cases? What's your position on that?
Exactly right. I don't think that in the 21st century, abortion should be an issue, period. There are plenty of contraceptives. We also have to take the personal responsibility in order to prevent unwanted pregnancies. Personally, I am pro-life, but my district and the polling over the state of Indiana shows that almost 68% of the population want a more balanced approach other than just a complete ban, with exceptions for rape, incest, and mother's health. So I am definitely against the abortions and pro-life. But because I am going, or hopefully going, to Washington to represent the district, I think we have to take a look at the possibility of allowing abortions in the first trimester, and then only continue with abortions in the event of mother's health or the baby's health. So, and my opponent, unfortunately, has voted twice, as far as I know, to have abortion allowed up until the date of birth, and I think it's unacceptable.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering that. And you're in line with the majority of Americans, about 70% or so, want some abortion rights, but they're focused on the first trimester, but not after that, and especially not after birth. So that's a very small fringe number of people that want to allow abortion for any reason up to birth. That's why you get the score of you win the score on the supporting life, but also with some exceptions. Okay, great. Thank you. And now we're going to move to Suzanne. Suzanne, what say you? What say Andre on this, the man that refuses to debate?
Well, Congressman Carson is rated 100% by the Planned Parenthood Association and 0% by the National Right to Life Committee. So that should tell you a little bit about his voting record. He has, in fact, voted with the Democrats for H.R. 8296 and H.R. 8297, the Women's Health Protection Act, and the Ensuring Access to Abortion Act, both of 2022, which he co-sponsored, the second bill I mentioned. He has signed on to many letters pressing the Biden administration to protect abortion rights federally and through executive order, which is constitutionally questionable.
Okay. So then that, in line with the vast majority of Democrats, I think there's only one Democrat in the entire House that opposes abortion, that's for life. He loses on that score for the very reasons you just explained. And again, the vast majority of Americans do not support abortion up to birth for any reason, and yet that is his position by definition. So thank you for that answer.
And by his votes.
And by his votes, by his answers, by his positions, and by his votes. Exactly. Most importantly, by his votes. Okay, thank you, Suzanne. Angela, okay, thank you. And we're now moving on to the second bucket of opportunity called economic opportunity. Again, two-part question. 3A, do you support a strong economy, free market capitalism with some checks and balances, and do you oppose expanded government control of our economy? That's part one. Part two is, do you oppose corruption and wasteful spending in government, which directly is related to increasing inflation?
Correct. As I said, I always compare the country from which I came from, where we didn't have the free markets, where we had the planned economy. I don't want to live in a country where the government is going to decide what and when I can eat and what and where I can wear and what I need to do with my life. We need to get government out of our lives as far as we can get them out. Government is spending enormous amount of money. It's creating the inflation. And one way to stop this rampant inflation from destroying our savings and destroying our lives is to take care of the fraud and abuse and all the corruption that is, of course, happening on all of the levels of the government.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And coming from the Soviet Union, I'm sure that rings true more for you than most people that are watching this right now, having experienced socialism and communism right up front. So
yes,
scary stuff. It's right on our doorstep right now. Thank you. Okay, so Suzanne, please speak for Andre Carson, who doesn't want to show up to talk for himself.
Well, his position on free markets is to be very pro-union. In fact, he is rated at 100% rating by over 10 different labor unions, including the AFL-CIO, and has been a strong proponent of not only big government unions, but big government spending, including foreign aid, all of these billions of dollars to Ukraine. He's not only been voted for them, but been a strong supporter in advocating for them in these letters he loves to write. With regards to waste, the congressman spends a great deal of time writing letters to increase government spending. If you look through all of the letters he's written, pretty much he's asking various agencies to open up those pocketbooks and spend. I'm not sure he has seen a government dollar spent that he didn't like.
That's progressives. This is the way they roll. And again, this is not because he's a Democrat. This is not red versus blue, but it's not.
This is just his own record and the words he's put on paper supporting a great deal of increased funding.
Exactly. So the thing is, he's progressive, which means he's for socialist big government, and for all of those reasons, and wasteful spending, which most Democrats today, 20, 30 years ago, wouldn't have been the case. Not like it is now. And it's certainly 50, 60 years ago, the JFK Democrats would have all scored pretty good at the score, actually, if following the JFK mantra. So it's where the Democrat Party has devolved to, and that's why he gets on these ratings. He gets such a low score of negative 80% on economic opportunity. Okay, thank you so much. All right, Suzanne. Okay, thank you, Suzanne. We're on to the next question, and that is we're now moving to social opportunity. These are social issues. Question 4. Do you support? I'm reading off the list. Do you oppose all forms of identity politics, including victim politics, separating people into opposing groups along racial, ethnic, and gender identity lines?
Absolutely. I'm one of those groups that has been discriminated for centuries. And this is why I definitely oppose separating people in different groups. But it is happening. It's a reality of today's world. And there are 24% there's 24% Black population in the district, around 14% Hispanic population in the district. And because, in my belief, because they are definitely separating them into the groups, they are not able to participate in all of the opportunities that America has to offer that I have been able to participate in. So we're talking about living as victims. People see themselves as victims, and we need to do something as Republicans to show them a better way. So we are all the same. We came to the United States because of the equality. There are 152 different languages that are spoken in my district, and we can't start separating people. All we have to do is just to get to the middle, get to the common ground, figure out what we need to do to bring the better economic opportunities to the district and to everybody in the United States.
Okay, great. And you know what? I would show the chart and your score, but people are probably going to guess what it is. We're going to go down this list, and it's going to show you one on that score. Because guess what? The vast majority of Americans do not support identity politics. They do not support it. It's equal rights for all, no bigotry. Yes, people will support that, but people also do not support radical identity politics. So thank you. And let me move to Andre's replacement here, since he won't join us. Suzanne, what say Andre? What say Andre? What would he say if he was here? Well, no, I won't say what he'd say here, because he would never admit the truth. Let's see what the truth is. What's the
yes,
truth?
Well, his record does speak much more clearly than perhaps his words would, John. He has voted for several bills that promote specific identity politics, including the Global Respect Act, HR 3485, the LGBTQA plus Data Inclusion Act, HR 4176, the LGBTQ Business Equal Credit Enforcement and Investment Act, HR 1443, a bill that would allocate government funds to specifically LGBT individuals. And he co-sponsored the Equality Act, HR 5, which, as we have heard in these debates before, pushes CRT education and funding into the school system. He is rated at 100% by the Human Rights Campaign and by other identity politics organizations. And he has signed several letters pushing equity agendas.
Okay, so I'm going to pull. Thank you for his background on that, and I'm going to pull all three of us up for a moment on this, because this to me is very, very critical, because Andre Carson is a Muslim, and totally fine, but he's done some pretty extremely aggressive anti-Semitic things with his position. He's strongly against Israel, and the LGBTQ movement is. I'm a gay man. I'm all for gay rights, but regendering children and pushing the religion, the LGBTQ agenda is really now effectively a religion. Okay, and they're pushing this very aggressive, and it's anti-women too. It's anti-women. So, and for all those reasons, I have a hard time understanding how Andre Carson positions himself as a moderate in any way, because that seems quite extreme. And by the way, the Human Rights Campaign that claims to support LGBTQ rights, their manager of their store in Provincetown threatened to shoot me dead 2 years ago, threatened to kill me because I was a gay conservative. So this is what we're dealing with: extreme radicals that would rather eliminate people that don't agree with them. Angela, what do you think about that one?
Listen, all they're doing, they're separating the people, because when they know that if we all come together, we can actually accomplish something, and we can create a much better and a much stronger society. So it's their way to control us. And as soon as people will begin to understand why they're pursuing this gender identity, gender fluidity, LGBTQ, and everything else that has never been an issue in the prior years, it's all in order to separate us and get us all against each other.
Well, correct. And I would also say that people might have heard this before, but it's a great statement. The greatest threat, tyranny fears nothing more than a united public.
Exactly.
They can't. It's a standard play of the game. You hear divide and conquer, but it's also divide and rule. And they can't possibly rule over us without having warring camps that they can pit one against the other, and it keeps them in control. Because as soon as people are united, their reign is over. And our scoring system shows about 80% of the people agree on the majority of issues. So we have a very united public, and that scares the hell out of them. That's why they keep working to divide us.
Well, and the congressman, if I may add, the congressman has seemed very interested in picking and choosing specific groups to provide not only specific rights and benefits, additional rights and benefits, but also additional government funding.
Right. And this is where the identity politics lies. So he doesn't treat everybody equally. So there are certain groups, I don't know if they're voting groups or they're just groups that he cares for more than other groups, but his district is not getting anything from him, and his district is not getting anything from the government.
And that's where they work. I guarantee you this, by the way. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Thank you. All right, so the next question is going to be the next question in the social opportunity bucket here is: do you support affordable and high-quality market-driven healthcare for all, allowing citizens to choose from a public government-run healthcare system or keep their private health insurance plan?
Private health insurance plan. I sound like a broken record, but I've given birth to my children in the former Soviet Union, and I can compare to what has happened here with all of my 8 grandchildren. And again, the comparison is a great tool and a great example for us to be able to see what is better, the private or the government-run system. Government cannot run the healthcare. It needs to be free market-based. And if we didn't have as many regulations as we have right now, and if the government wouldn't be in cahoots together with the health insurance companies, everything would be much, much less expensive. Medicare for all, definitely not going to work. Medicare is out of money in 3 years. Nobody's talking about it. Democrats have taken $700 billion from the Medicare and funded the Affordable Care Act with it. I don't think that majority of our seniors actually understand what has happened. Yep. So we don't have enough money for people who are receiving the Medicare. How can we have Medicare for all?
Okay. All right. Thank you, and great answer on that. Again, that is generally in line with the population. I'll pull up your score on it. So you win the positive point on free market healthcare and options. You do lose the point on having some option for government healthcare. Most Americans want that, but many conservatives believe, or free market thinkers believe, that's going to put an end to the free market healthcare in any case, because it would be such a big competitor. In any case,
but when you're talking about Medicare and Medicaid, it's already in the existence. It would be pretty difficult to replace. We have to be realistic, but it definitely needs to be controlled.
Medicare for all would, and then having an option for everybody to have a chance to get health insurance from the government if they can't get personal. So that's why we divide it into 2 parts, and it's a 50-50 score for you on that.
Then I misunderstood the question, because again, having a safety net is not having a government option for all. Because if there is a government option for all, there is not going to be private health insurance for all.
Yes, exactly. And that's the reason why so that's the reason why most Americans want that, whether it's good or not. That's why you don't have to agree with everything that the majority of Americans want on every issue, because sometimes they
got it.
Sometimes what the majority wants isn't always great for everybody, but that's how the system here is created. Okay, great. Thank you very much. We're going to go then see what Andre has to say about this. Zan?
Well, John, he voted for the Medicare for All Act and the Women's Health Protection Act and several other bills expanding federal health care programs, particularly funding. He has, again, written many letters pushing for anything from free HIV preventative shots, for example, Medicare covering home PCR tests for COVID, expanding coverage of contraception, and many other government expansions of funding of federal medical care and thus federal medical control.
Okay, great. So this is again, when you see the healthcare issue, it's the inverse. So he supports more government healthcare, whether conservatives or free market thinkers like it or not. The majority of people want more of a health of a safety net than we have now, a little more of a European style there. But only 10% want to see the elimination of all private healthcare, and that's what Medicare for All will definitely bring, one single payer. So that's why he loses on that point. but he gets a 50-50 on the other point on government.
Well, and John, again, his record shows that he picks and chooses winners and losers and tries to push for them specifically, these groups, to get additional funding. And that is true whether it's education, direct benefits, or healthcare benefits.
Yeah, and that's under the identity politics social side of the score, where he was dinged on that big time. So he lost all those points on that.
As well as immigrants, including illegal immigrants.
Yes, all over the place. All right. Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, great. So now we're going to move on to the next question. We have educational opportunity. Again, this is also in 2 points. Number one, do you support school choice, school vouchers, and more parental involvement in schools? And do you oppose teaching critical race theory and other radical transgender education theories to our children in public schools?
Absolutely. Our children need to know how to read, write, and how to understand science. In Indiana, only 17% of Black and brown children are capable of reading and writing at their grade level, and it is unacceptable. Indianapolis public schools have failed. Andre Carson have failed, and our children are suffering. They're just trapped in the schools that are not providing good education and not preparing them for their future life as equal members of this society, equal and contributing members of this society. So all children should be trained on how to read and write, and we have to be preparing them for the future. They don't need to be involved, or they don't need to be taught a critical race theory that originally was designed to be used with college students. And again, it's only a theory. We don't need to teach any theories. They need to know exact science until they're capable of thinking on their own.
Okay. Thank you. And your positions are in line with the American public. Very strong support for school choice. Very strong support for more parental control in schools, which is the antithesis of where the Democrats are with these teachers unions, and likewise with pushing this radical transgender agenda. PRT. That's not favorite amongst majority Americans. Thank you, Angela. Okay, now next to Suzanne. Where are we now with respect to to Andre's position, since he won't speak for himself?
Well, the congressman is rated 100% by the NEA and is in a strong support of teachers' unions. He votes in line with the Democrats on this issue consistently. He has also voted for expanded funding for the Department of Education. He has worked for and voted for what he calls educational equity. Again, it's very pick and choose winners and losers. He has signed several letters writing for the Department of Education to get involved with gun safety or gun security, using the education department to pressure individuals as far as gun rights are concerned, to impose gun regulations, sort of backdoor. So it's very interesting how this congressman operates in specific, almost in an untransparent manner, John.
Okay. And this is, again, another example of, we talk about the voice of the forgotten 80%. That's our motto at GOUSA, because, the vast majority of people, you look at where he's on school choice, he's with the teachers unions against school choice. We have that, the proof here, as we just talked about. And new polls show, for example, that widespread support for school choice. And if you look at things like critical race theory in school, Americans are not buying it. And here's the proof. People are not, most don't want to push identity politics or racial politics in schools. So
he tends to try to push for funding increases, which, as we know, increase government control. That's one of the ways he pushes for a lot of big government policies, through funding. Okay.
And again, no surprise. We know we've done many of these debates, and we know where the Democrats stand on average as a party. There are exceptions. We scored somebody just recently that has a pretty decent score, not, in the Democrat side. So it's not really all Democrats and all Republicans, but this guy is fully in with the progressives and against the American public on almost all these issues so far. Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, great. So now we're winding down. We have just four more questions we'll go through for national opportunity, which are more national concern. Starting with number one, do you support our local police, safe communities, and law and order, and oppose the defund the police efforts?
Absolutely, especially in the local area. Indianapolis is the second in the amount of murders per capita in the United States last year, right after Philadelphia. There is increased crime because Indianapolis is being run by the radical Democrats, just like Andre Carson. So he was for the defund the police. He didn't do anything during the riots of 2020. So we have to fund the police. We have to support our policemen. We have to get the prosecutors that are going to take criminals off the streets. Almost 70% of crime in the Indianapolis area where I'm running is not being reported because people are afraid of repercussions. People just living in fear.
Well, that's and I know that it is the crime is high by you, and this is just no time to be attacking our police and supporting criminals, which is
Yep,
again,
exactly.
right now the far left. They're much more concerned about criminals' rights more than the victims.
Yeah, our prosecutor, when you hear him talk, he sounds like a social worker. He cares about the future of the criminals and what they can and cannot do after they get their time. We have to worry about the victims first, not the criminals.
And the majority believe that the Democrat Party now is more concerned about immigrants than citizens, and more concerned about the lawbreakers than the victims. It's
Exactly.
really victims. It's really upside down. It's like, imagine a TV show, like it's Superman, right? He comes to save the day, and he starts beating up the victims. I'm going to save this poor criminal that was just trying to rob the bank. The poor criminal was.
But listen,
he's going and beating and saying, "Stop. He might get arrested. He might have to do jail time. You terrible, horrible victims."
Yeah. But John, we also have to understand that what is not happening, and the reason why the crime is so high, because education is almost non-existent, and because there are no economic opportunities in most of the inner cities. So everybody inner city, they're telling me that they care about food deserts, banking deserts, housing deserts, and of course, political deserts. They only hear one side of the story. And people like Carson are keeping Republicans away. They're keeping Republican message away from being disseminated everywhere. But I feel that people, especially in the minority communities, are beginning to see that Democrats are not offering them any solutions.
Well, so I mean, nothing can be exemplified better than the fact that he's had his office closed for 3 years. I mean, a year after COVID, he's still not open his office. Talk about screw you, screw my job. I don't care. I'm just rubber stamping, and I'm getting my paycheck, and no one's going to stop me because I'm a deep blue Democrat in a deep blue district. Well, we want to that needs to change, because those people need to be served and stop this corruption. So thank you very much. Okay, great. So let's hear from Andre's side. Andre, that's just a no-show today.
Well, he was a former police officer. That is part of his record. But interestingly, he has supported much of the Democrats' anti-police agenda, including voting for the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, H.R. 7120, that restricted police authority and limited qualified immunity. He has advocated for commuting jail sentences due to COVID. And this is another area where he doesn't necessarily put a lot of votes on record, but he writes a lot of letters urging reducing sentences, criminals' rights, as you were discussing, and limiting the powers of police.
Okay. And it sounds like, this a broken record to a certain degree for some of the other people that we've done these debates for and with. And he, again, he's more concerned about criminals' rights than he is about the victims. And I'm sorry, when you're injured, killed, shot, raped, your business burns down, you can't get that back. Many of the times, if you're dead, you're never coming back. And it seems like our politicians on the left only care about power and control, and they don't care about the pile of bodies. We'll talk about that in a minute with the borders, which is coming up next. Okay. Thank you very much, Suzanne. Okay, so now on more crises, more dangerous crises facing America. The next one is, do you support border security, lawful immigration, and stemming border crime and drugs?
Absolutely. I am a legal immigrant to this country. And it took almost 20 years for my family to get together. So we waited in line, just like a lot of people all over the world are waiting in line. There should not be any illegal immigration, and America should be able to choose who to invite to come to America and who shouldn't be coming here. So we have to secure our borders, and only then we can start working on all of the people who are here in the country. I understand they're living in the shadow, they broke our rules, but until the borders are secured, we're not going to be able to solve the problem with everybody who's already in the country.
And this is not just a political thing. This is a life and death thing. People are dying.
Exactly.
100,000 Americans or so, more than 107,000, I believe, died of drug overdoses, the vast majority because of opioids coming from our southern border. We have crime spiking, we have human trafficking, and they're flooding cities, and millions of coming into our country, and they're not here legally, but it's all a political game. It's all for political power. So you are on the national opportunity, you get a straight run, you're a home run all the way on all the issues. And if you look at, right here, you just talked about the borders, and right, you're in the line with the American people on that. And here's plenty of proof. If the viewers want to go and check this out, you see Rasmussen polls and other polls talking about how the vast majority of people want a secure border. Okay, so thank you for your answer on that, and we're going to see what Andre has to say about it. Okay.
Well, John, again, in several letters and statements, the congressman has advocated for expanding protected illegal immigrant status, expanding rights under DACA, expanding benefits to refugees from various countries such as the Ukraine, as we've seen in the past as well, paying for the legal services, asking for expanded funding for paying for the legal services for illegals who are facing deportation. He would like the American taxpayers to pay for these individuals' legal services while they are facing deportation from this country. So I guess we paid for both sides in that point. He also voted for the No Ban Act, which would limit executive powers to act against illegal immigration, as well as several other pro-illegal immigrant bills.
Okay, again, this is just, to me, it's insanity. Every country in the world has borders. Every country in the world, you come into Mexico illegally, you see what happens. Any country in the world, you come in illegally, you start abusing the system, you think you get rights. Nowhere really can you do that. Nowhere, except in America, where one party benefits from future illegal voters, and the other party does not, and as much. And it's really just a political game at all of our peril, at literal peril. So this is an area, again, we're not biased when it comes to lead and blue, but we are very biased when it comes to the security and safety of the American people, the will of the people, and the Constitution. And again, Andre miserably fails on this point and gets a negative score on that.
And he loves spending taxpayers' money, and he certainly is happy. In fact, encourages many times to provide those funds to people in this country illegally.
It's buying votes is all it is. Buying votes. Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, two more questions. Another big question, if you look at Rasmussen, top issues from Rasmussen, election security is in the top 10. Do you support, adhere to, and publicly promote transparent, secure, free, and fair elections and voter ID laws?
Absolutely. It should belong to the states. I think we need to have voting that is done in one day, just like it was years ago. And if we really want to make it available to everybody, I think that most of the states right now have 1 week prior elections when people can do that on their own time instead of standing in lines during the election day. But I would definitely be against the mail-in voting like it was done in 2020 election. And I think everybody definitely needs to have an ID to vote. And in addition to the ID, because we have so many different immigrants, I believe that people should also show their naturalization certificates to make sure that they're eligible for voting.
I mean, honestly, the reality is the most secure voting is, it's statistically proven that the most secure voting is in person on the day of the election. Nothing beats that.
Yeah.
And in some countries, they do the purple. You put your thumb in a purple dye, and it doesn't come out until for a week. I mean, I would love to see Americans walking around with a big purple dye on their finger for a week, knowing that they voted legally and they only voted once on the day of the election. If you really want secure elections, so the majority of Americans are strong. It's almost 80% plus 85% want voter ID. People want secure elections. They want free and fair elections. And if you can't make it, if you're sick, you're disabled, you're working on the day that, there's certain reasons why you have to go find, and people are all right with that. But the far left, the Democrats, HR 1 would destroy election integrity. It would just give Democrats permanent political power. That's what HR 1 would do. So, okay, thank you. All right, let's go on to, let's see what Andre, let me see what would Andre do? Was there a chance he'd buck the system and buck HR 1, or is he all in for this whole radical elections agenda from the left, which is
well, he's voted for pretty much all of these election agenda bills, specifically the ones also limiting presidential election power to the states. He voted for Presidential Election Reform Act, HR 8873, which would limit state control of elections, which is, as we know, is granted by the Constitution. He voted for the John L. Lewis Freedom to Vote Act, which prohibited state ID laws. That's HR 5746. And for the Protecting Our Democracy Act, HR 5314, which expands congressional power specifically in response to the 2020 elections, which he obviously was very upset that some people didn't agree with.
Okay, again, this is no more hypocrisy from the left, pushing these radical bills. And again, it's clear the American public wants secure elections. They do. I mean, most people do want mail-in voting. I personally disagree with that. But as long as there's voter ID and there's a way to track it, blockchain, some other way, I think most Americans would agree that the most secure, the better. But he's gone way off the deep end with this. And it's funny that, Hillary Clinton, again, she came out that 2016 was stolen. She said 2024 is going to be stolen. They can talk about elections stolen in the future, elections stolen in the past. Everyone, 2000, 2004, 2016, they fought every one of those. But if a Republican thinks that there's any foul play in 2020, you're dead. You're called an election denier.
Well, John, I would urge our listeners to take a look at the quote unquote Protecting Our Democracy Act, HR 5314, because it does some very large expansion of specifically the congressional branch, the legislative branch's power over the states and their power to control their own elections. So y'all need to be paying attention certainly to that.
It's unconstitutional. The Supreme Court never put up with it. That's why they also want to pack the court. That's why we have to make sure everyone goes to vote and make sure they don't take total control, because they will do all of it, and America will be maybe irrecoverable at that point. Okay, thank you. Okay, so great. So one more question. We're covering all the things voters care about. If everyone saw this video, I can't believe you'd win in a landslide. We got to get this out to everybody. You're doing great. You're batting nearly 100. Okay, Angela, your last question. Do you support sensible, science-based renewable energy solutions while maintaining a mix of fossil fuels to regain American energy independence, which is directly related to gas prices?
100%. Fossil fuels and everything, all of the above. We need to use all of the energy sources. It's the only thing that will allow our economy to grow and for the pie to get bigger and better. This is how we can break the poverty cycle. This is how we can ensure that we have economic opportunities for everybody who wants them. So we already know that the government, our current government, and Andre Carson basically declared the war on fossil fuels. Andre Carson thinks that it's a good idea to ask our adversaries to help us. He thinks that it's fine to talk to Iran and Venezuela and Saudis and ask them for oil instead of drilling here. America is the best when it comes to climate change and taking care of the CO2. Again, we can do everything in a balanced approach instead of coming up with this arbitrary number, 2050, when we want to have zero CO2 emissions. So what if it's going to be 2060? It's going to be just fine. We can't solve global problems by inflicting all this pain on the American population, and we can't solve long-term problems with the short-term so-called solutions. So all of the above, energy sources to support our economy.
Okay, great. Well, you struck it out. You hit it out of the park with that, because the Americans, people believe in, yes, growing and finding other alternative energies, at the same time keeping American energy independence. And by the way, it's going to be 100+ years, maybe 200 years before we can wean ourselves off oil and gas, and it's not creating the global catastrophe that the left is saying. They're alarmists. They've been proven wrong on every climate emergency they've been complaining about for the past 60 years. So
it's much easier to control people when they live in fear, and they do it from everywhere.
This is politically motivated, 95%. 5% is real, 95% politically motivated. Keep
Correct.
That up when you talk about anything to do with climate change. And again, if you look at your positions and where the Americans stand on this app, we put thousands and thousands of hours into creating these ratings, and we have the explanation showing where the people stand. It is bulletproof. You are on the side of the American people. It's undeniable. We have the proof right here. No one can beat it. Okay, so wonderful. So
I just need to have 51% of the population of the 7th district to see this and go and vote for me.
This was mandatory schooling. If the people this got in for everybody, you would.
They would definitely do it. I get it.
They would do it 100%. Okay, so let's see what Andre has to say about this. We think we know where he stands because he's a radical leftist, but what does he have to say?
Well, John, he has written a lot of letters, big shocker, in regards to encouraging climate investment, climate change investments in sustainable energies, but also linking those things to racial equity, as his common way.
Everything is racial. Gas is racial. Yes. Everything is
He
racial.
has voted for the Expanding Access to the Sustainable Energy Act, HR 4447, and the Climate Action Now Act, HR 9. Now, interestingly, he is extremely partisan on this issue and voted against every energy bill put out by conservatives under the Trump administration and the last Republican-led Congress.
Okay, so no surprise on that, right? So he again, he doesn't do well on these scores. He gets a mixed score, thumbs up and thumbs down on the American.
Well, he does support sustainable energy unless Republicans suggest sustainable energy, then he does not support it.
That's right. So he doesn't support it, and so again, he loses on he loses the majority of the score on that issue, and I just, again, civilization is because of freedom and liberty and oil and gas. We would have nothing we have on this planet without both of those things. So the radical left has to calm down and realize that it's not as big. There is mostly political. The world hasn't collapsed. We're halfway. It's just nonsense. We have to be careful. We have to do it slow, but it's going to take decades to do it over time. That's the only way this is.
Well, and John, if you present a record of being for something, you should be for it, even if your opponents are also supporting it. He seems to base what his opinion is on energy and all sorts of potentially useful energy legislation based on which party has presented it.
That's right. Okay. And some of that he's just a rubber stamper for his party. And that's not what we need in Congress. We need people serving the people, not screwing them and not serving themselves and just serving other masters. So thank you very much, Suzanne. Great job. Thank you so much for speaking for Andre, who won't show up. So we have the facts. It's better than him showing up, because then he's not going to hear to lie. We're going to get the actual truth on the facts.
That's correct.
So fact checking him all the way. Okay, great. So Angela, thank you very much for coming today once again. And we wanted to remind everybody to please check out your score, check out your website. If they support you, please go into your site and provide some support, financial support, to do ads.
AngelaForIndiana.com.
I'm sorry, what does it say again?
AngelaForIndiana.com.
AngelaForIndiana.com. please go and learn more about Angela's record, and we're going to be putting this live stream out for everyone to see shortly on our YouTube and Facebook channels. So I wanted to thank you again. You want to say another final word briefly before we go?
Thank you, John, and thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate you having me. So I'm hoping that people who are going to watch this so-called debate are going to know what they're dealing with. They would be voting for me, who's very much in the middle to the right, very common sense person, versus having somebody who is far left and far radical for anybody's liking.
Great. Thank you. Thank you again. And standing up, and you'll see the scores right here on the screen. You've got a positive, remember, a great 4.6 out of 5, which is very strong pro opportunity, a rare high score. Very few people even score above a 4, and -2 out of 5 for Andre Carson, which is a very poor anti-opportunity score. On the majority of issues in the Constitution, he's working against you, and you're working for the people. We have the goods to show it. People voted on this. The whole world would be a much better place. So
I know.
Thank you for joining us once again. And thank you.
Thank you
to our audience. And I'm just going to wrap up. Thank you again for everyone joining the OppScore debate with or without the candidates for the race for the 7th Congressional District in Indiana. We thank Republican nominee Angela Grabovsky for joining us and Angela's campaign for Congress, Suzanne Monk. And special thanks to our core of hardworking pro-America volunteers and our generous donors at GOUSA, where we unabashedly stand for American values and the voice of the forgotten 80%. We have produced other debates just like this for other candidates all over the country, so be sure to check them out on our YouTube channel and Rumble channels, and support those politicians who support your values and interests as detailed in their OppScore ratings. Find us at go-usa.us to learn more, to donate, and to search over 500 candidates we've scored. And be sure to vote, 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 and vote smart this election. And remember, it's not red versus blue, it's them versus you. Thanks again for watching.